This is a certified hood classic.
Hey now. All week long.
All rise, order in the court. We've got a couple good ones for you today. I know, Mikey, you got a PTO at some point.
Yeah, we got some TPO stuff, harassment, whatever you want to call it here in a few. But Creed, you said you have stumbled upon one of our favorite judges yelling at young people.
Yes, and I want to jump over because they are live now. So let's jump right into it.
All right. And
He is not of children.
You understand by entering into a plea, you'll be waiving some of those rights, specifically your trial and appellate rights.
Yes.
That's it.
And you understand the possible penalty as a result of your plea, correct?
Yes.
And knowing all that, you still want to continue with your plea.
Yes.
Has anybody promised you anything, threatened you, or coerced you in any way for you to enter into a plea today?
No.
All right, the court finds the plea is knowing and voluntary. The court will accept your plea.
I should go down that
The
stand
charge
for
is the original charge for the plea agreement.
She's great at scrapbooking.
And that's $200, sir. Do you have that to pay today?
Do you take American Express? Here.
I think so.
We did.
We have, it's a third party vendor that processes the online payments.
I'll have to go over.
Take Discovery card.
How much cash I have, and if not, I probably use my American Express.
Okay, and if we don't accept American Express, you can just bring it back later today, or you can even.
I'll
buy lots of
what I
stuff,
have,
Angela,
and,
please.
Bring back the rest in a couple of days or whatever.
Okay, so I'll indicate that the balance that it has to be paid in full, not later than Friday, March 24th. Okay, that gives you a couple days to be able to bring it back.
This dude's
Okay.
camera don't stop
All right.
moving. You're right.
Thank you. Have a
It's
good day.
alive. It's alive.
Is that the room where we watched the one guy get like he?
And so
Remember
we
when he
have
like?
the matter,
This was.
the
Do we have a
city of
buffer yet?
Wyandotte versus Lily Wilson.
10. So yeah, I'm happy with that.
W66705.
They let me apply this morning for a partnership, so I'm gonna say yes.
And good morning. Your name, please. Okay, no, you're way too quiet. I'm sure you're not that quiet all the time. We're still not getting you. Speak. Put your mouth right. There you go.
Yell.
Better? Okay. All right. And ma'am, your name, please.
Jessica Foster.
Okay, thank you. And can you spell your first and last names, please?
JESSICAFOSTER.
Okay. And what is your relationship to Lily?
I'm her mother.
Okay. All right. And so, Ms. Wilson, you received a citation on February 10th of 23 at Wilson Middle School for prohibited conduct, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so you had an opportunity to speak to your prosecuting attorney today, correct?
Yes.
And that prosecuting attorney indicates you're going to be pleading responsible to prohibited conduct. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
All right. And so I'm going to have you please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear from the testimony.
Keep in mind with these cases,
Yes.
90% or more of the
And
time, it's
so
very hard to
as
hear
The kid.
allegation of prohibited conduct, how do you plead? Responsible or not responsible?
Responsible.
And you understand you have the right to have a contested hearing in this matter, correct?
Yes.
And that by entering into a plea, you will not have that contested hearing.
Yes.
And you understand the possible penalty by entering into a plea today, correct?
Yes.
And has anybody promised you anything, threatened you, or forced you in any way for you to enter into a plea?
No.
All right, so tell me, what is it that you did that would render you responsible for prohibited conduct on that date?
They found a vape.
Hold on, you're trailing off.
They found a vape in my backpack.
Okay. Who's they?
The principal.
Okay, you can adjust the microphone so it's right in front of you. Okay. And so is that because you brought the vape to school?
Yes.
Okay, so
Vaping at school.
what you did is not, they found it in your bag. What did you do?
I brought the vape to school.
Okay. And you're how old?
13.
And so you're not allowed to have a vape, correct?
Yes.
And you also are not allowed to bring a vape to school, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that yes?
Yes.
And what else was located in your backpack?
I have like I don't know.
And that's clearly not legal for you to have in your possession, correct?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Nor is it legal to have on the school property, correct? All right. The court's going to accept your plea as knowing, voluntary, and factually accurate.
She was
And,
vaping.
I gotta tell you, when I was 13, I didn't even know what a roach was. How do you even know what that is at 13 and where to get it?
Did she have some weed too?
No, don't tell me you don't know. You absolutely know.
I mean, it was around my house.
Okay. I'm sorry, you're trailing off.
A roach
It was
must be.
around my
there.
house. When I was growing up.
Okay, so it was around your house when you were growing up, so you thought it was appropriate for you to take the marijuana from whom? From your mom?
Oh,
Okay, so it's hers,
That's embarrassing.
correct? And she's legally able to possess it and use it, correct?
Yes.
And you are not, correct? So why did you think that it was okay to steal the marijuana from your mother, use it, and then take it to school?
that's what all the cool kids do.
No. Okay, first of all, we can't hear you. And second of all, I don't know is not an acceptable answer. You do know, you made the choice. You made the choice to take the marijuana from your mom, right?
Thank you, toy mom.
Then you made the choice to smoke it, correct? And then you made the choice to take it to school, correct? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't want to hear, I don't know. Because you do know, you made those conscious choices. So I'm going to restate my question. Why did you think that it was acceptable for you to steal the marijuana from your mom, use it, and then even take it to school?
Rose.
No, it was not. So what was going through your head prior to that, that you thought it would be a good
Nah.
idea?
Well, I got grounded before, so I had a party. I was gonna go to the and they found it.
Okay, so let me understand this correctly. You had a party at your house.
What?
No, I was gonna go to a party after school, so I was gonna go home.
Who goes a party after school?
The-
Was it during the week?
It was on a Friday.
Oh, a Friday, oh, okay. And so you were going to go to a party, another 13-year-old's house or somebody else?
It was somebody else's,
Okay, and how old was that person?
13.
47.
So you're going to go there for a party. And so you decided that you were going to bring some marijuana to share at the party,
Yes.
Party favors.
even though it wasn't yours to bring and share.
All right, that's why she had it at
Did you
school.
ask your mom if you could take it?
Yeah.
No, so you stole it from your mom.
Thank you,
And
Pamela.
why would you think that you would need to take marijuana to a party?
Everybody was going, and I just thought, everybody-
Price of admission.
I'll say that the fact that, at 13, you have the thought process to steal marijuana from your mom and then take it to a party
Thank you.
with other 13-year-olds is a huge problem.
Not everywhere, Hector, but
So
I get
you
it.
said you had been grounded
Yeah.
before that?
Yes,
And what were you grounded for?
for being caught with a vape at school and being suspended before.
And then you took another vape to school and then marijuana.
If nothing, she's consistent.
Good point.
And so, Mom, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Sorry, Your Honor. I'm high as a kite right now.
Well, I'm obviously not happy to be here, be in this situation. I think being here hopefully brought light to her how serious this is. You know, I'd like to think that I raised her better and brought her up better. She had a pretty great upbringing for the most part. She's definitely responsible for her own actions. However, we have had a rough couple years with loss. I think her coming into middle school, you know, just the transition has been rough. She has always been a top-notch student up until 6th grade, and then it kind of started to taper off a little bit.
That happens.
She always carried really good grades up until recently. So I'm just trying to navigate it the best way I can, you know, from my end also, and hope that this is not the route we continue to go down at such a young age.
And so what, Lily, what punishment did you receive at home?
I have been grounded for about,
I can't hear you.
I've been grounded for about a month and a half.
Okay, so what does that look like?
It's horrible.
You have to speak directly into the microphone because I'm having a hard time hearing you.
It's horrible, but I'm also in the
Okay, so when no grounding, does that mean you can't go anywhere?
yeah, okay.
Okay. And what about your phone? Do you have access to your phone?
No.
What about an iPad? A tablet? Video games?
Blackberry.
Computer?
Pager, Motorola.
I've also taken control
Smoke
of
signals.
any money she's had to, so she's not freely able to purchase, you know, vapes or however, I don't know where it's coming from anyway, but that's kind of, and obviously she's gonna be paying for her ticket and things with her own money today.
And so, ma'am, where did you get the vape? And I don't want to hear, I don't know, because you know.
I got it from one of my friends at school, I think.
I
Or
think.
It might have been someone from online on Instagram, I think.
So you understand that when you're purchasing things like that from individuals, that you don't know what's in those. You understand that? And you understand that there are individuals that may not have the best of intentions and for whatever reason will lace those products with things that could cause you significant harm or death. Do you understand that?
Yes,
Same here in South Carolina.
Did you understand that prior to, or do you
Same in
understand
North
that now?
Carolina.
I understand.
And so what are your grades like right now?
They aren't the best. I mean, I have like 2 fail grades, but I've been working really hard to get them up.
Okay, when you say not the best, what does that mean?
Well, I have 2 weeks, but I have 2 C's and a B.
Okay.
BHS,
So
the
what's
weed's
been going
fine for a
on that it
13-year-old?
seems
Is that what
as
you're
though
saying?
you
In middle
don't
school,
really
weed
care
school?
about
Got it.
much,
All
you're
right.
just kind of going through the motions.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I've been going through like some of them lately.
Okay. Have you talked to your mom about those? All right. And have you
do here.
thought about going and speaking to a counselor, a therapist, somebody, it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody at school. It can be somewhere off-site or somewhere like that.
Good to see old Squishy Gardner.
Hope you're doing well,
And
pal.
that sounds like that's something that you should probably do.
I don't know why there's so much confusion in our chat about
And
this.
so, do you earn money?
No,
Do you have money saved for birthdays or Christmas or something?
I did, and that's what I'm using for this.
Okay.
I want your monies. Can you talk to the guys in the truck and let them know?
All
Stop
right,
moving
and
this
so the
camera.
court's going to indicate $100. And do you have that to pay today?
Yeah.
Okay. And I certainly hope that I'm not going to see you back in here for something like this again. And I truly, truly hope that you're going to get into some counseling or therapy so that you can work through what it is you're going through. Because self-medicating with marijuana and flavored vapes and things like that is not the way that that's going to have long-term productive results. Okay? All right. Okay, you just have to see out in the lobby and somebody will with you shortly. Have a good day.
Well, I think they did the right thing, Creed.
This is the matter of the city of Wyandotte versus Samaya Owens.
Apparently, our chat and many people in there says
236-6704.
it's fine for kids to smoke weed and vape all they want in school. 13 years old.
13? Why not?
Fine.
My mom started smoking at 9.
What is wrong with you people? Some of you are what?
Good afternoon.
Do what
Your
you want.
name, please?
Samaya Owens.
Okay, thank you very much. Are we able to pick her up? Yes. Okay, all right, and your name, please?
Maria Mora.
Can you please spell your first and last names?
Sure, my first name is Maria, M-A-R-I-A.
She was caught vaping.
All right, thank you.
Oh
And your
my
relation
God,
to
you
Ms.
guys.
Owens?
Illegal search.
Okay,
Jesus
all right, I
Christ.
presumed, but I didn't want to just make that assumption. Okay, and so Samaya, you're here because it's alleged that you had in your possession on February 8th at Wilson Middle School. Or sorry, that you engaged in prohibited conduct while Wilson Middle School.
Yes.
All right, and
Maybe.
well,
We don't like that.
He's drawing a picture of me. He's trying to get it good.
We're going to also call the matter of the city of Wyandotte versus Akira Bugard. 23W66703. So this happened together, correct?
Oh, birds of a feather
right.
flock together.
2 for Tuesday, am I
And,
right?
Ma'am, your name.
Of course.
I apologize. Bogart, okay. And your name, please? I'm sorry. Can you, okay, can you spell your, all right, can you spell your first and last name, please?
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, yours I have, yours, sir.
CHRIVOUZAR.
Okay. Okay, and so Ms. Bogard and Ms. Owens, you both received citations alleging that you were engaging in prohibited conduct while at Wilson Middle School on February 8th of this year. And specifically, it's alleged that you had in your possession vapes, marijuana vape pen.
Does anybody smoke anything the old fashioned way anymore?
All right, and you each were able to speak with the prosecuting attorney today, correct? Okay,
Correct.
Okay, very good. And thank you both for dressing appropriately for court. And it's indicated on this form that you've signed that you're going to be pleading responsible for prohibited conduct. Is that correct, Ms. Bogart?
Yes.
Ms. Owens?
Correct.
All right, so I'm going to have you each please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give this matter to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, Ms. Owens?
Yes.
Ms. Bogart?
I do.
All right. And so, Ms. Bogart, as to the allegation that you engaged in prohibited conduct, how do you plead, responsible or not responsible?
Responsible.
Ms. Owens, how do you plead?
Responsible.
And you each understand that you have the right to have a contested hearing in this matter, correct?
Correct.
And that by entering into a plea, you will not have that hearing. And you understand the possible penalty as a result of your plea, is that correct, Ms. Bogart? Ms. Owens?
Correct.
And knowing all that, you still want to continue with your plea?
Yes. Yes.
Has anybody promised you anything, threatened you, or coerced you in any way for you to enter into a plea, Ms. Owens?
No.
Ms. Bogart?
No. No.
All right, and so. Gary! What is it that you did that would render you responsible for prohibited conduct on February 9th? And I misspoke, I think, when I said February 8th earlier, I didn't have my glasses on when I said that. And so, Ms. Bogart, you can go first.
You want the story or what? I had it in my purse. I held it for her. So.
So you had in your possession a vape, marijuana vape pen.
Yes.
All right, and Ms. Owens, what is it that you did that would render you responsible for prohibited conduct?
I took it from my house and took it from
Had her hold it for you? Who's her?
a college. Sorry.
That's okay, just for the record, if somebody's reading it, they don't know who her is,
Sorry.
okay? All right, and so the court does find the plea as knowing, voluntary, and factually accurate. The court will accept your plea in these matters. And it's my understanding, Ms. Owens, that you had just had a conversation with administration the day before regarding vapes, correct?
Yes.
And then you still brought another one to school the next day.
Correct.
Why?
Because I thought I would be able to, so I don't know.
I'm sorry, you thought you'd be cool with it until what?
Until I got in trouble.
So what
Honest
part of
answer.
stealing a vape from your mother is cool?
Nothing about that is cool. I just thought it was cool at the time.
Kid was just trying to be cool.
And so people at school think it's cool for people to vape or for them to get in trouble for vaping while they sit back and watch?
For taking it to school, taking it to school.
So any of those individuals, I think it's cool. Are they here right now?
Thank you.
I can't hear. I can't hear.
Hallelujah, Chris. Thank you for the 5 memberships.
Your generosity has
And
no end.
so, Ms. Owens, if you were to test today, what would be detected in your system?
I do not know if marijuana will come up, but it's a possibility.
And when's the last time you used marijuana?
Almost a week ago.
And where did you get it a week ago?
I found it at my
Okay, so, Ms. Mora, I'm not passing judgment or anything if you have it at your home because it's legal, but do you have it at
My
your
son
home?
lives with me, he's 18, I don't have a vape, it was his marijuana pen.
Okay,
Mm.
well, I mean, so
That's
because
an
your
off on the
son's
brother.
not 21, it's not
Smooth
legal
move,
for him
Mom.
to have either,
Right.
nor is it legal for him to have marijuana. And so, and if somebody were to have marijuana legally, they would still have to be locked up so that Ms. Owens wouldn't be able to access it. So Ms. Owens, who did you steal the marijuana from?
My brother.
Did he willingly give it to you or did you steal it?
I took it.
Was he home when you took it?
No.
So how do you know where he keeps his marijuana? Which he's
Glad
not
you're
allowed to
here.
have yet anyway.
It was late night sport in his room.
So you entered into his room. You took a drug that doesn't belong to either one of you, quite frankly, legally. And you used it. Did you even know what was in it?
I knew that it was marijuana.
Okay, did you know where you bought it from?
No, ma'am.
So you don't know what was in it. Could have been laced with something that could have killed you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Does that matter to you? And Ms. Bogart, if you were to test what's going to be in your system,
Nothing.
not a thing.
No. Unless it takes from February 1.
So you used the marijuana pen on February 9th. Is that yes?
Yes.
Why?
She brought it to school. I mean, honestly, kids do it nowadays. I wouldn't say I was going to see him, but something like
Something tells me your dad is not very happy with that answer. No. And so when you were explaining what it is that happened, you made it sound as though you were only here because Miss Owens handed it to you, but you in fact used it also.
No, I walked into the bathroom. She walked in after me. I didn't know she had it.
Okay, but you used it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because originally you indicated that what you stated to the court made it sound as though you were just holding it for her because she passed it to you. But you in fact used the pen.
Peer pressure.
Okay. And so you didn't know what was in that? No. And then on another level, you're sharing something and you're putting your mouth on the same device.
Oh, wow. It's great, Chris.
Okay, so Ms. Bogart, after you used it, how'd you feel?
I mean, it wasn't really a big deal. I really, because it was so, like, it happened so quick, it was like, this much. I didn't really feel anything, to be honest.
It was weak, Your Honor.
For me, getting in trouble, it like just everything away, so I was like,
Ms. Owens, how did you feel?
I felt,
I'm sorry, what?
I didn't feel anything.
26 minutes for me.
So Ms. Bogart, what was your punishment at home? I'm sure you received one.
Yeah, I got my phone took, my game took.
Taken.
Mr. Bogart, are you drug testing the Cairo?
No.
You know, you can get those online. You can get
Thank you.
testing kits
I didn't know that.
or at pharmacies even. Yeah, sure can.
They're on the checkout of the Dollar Tree, too.
Ms.
Right next to the
Bogart, if I send
pregnancy
you over
test.
information
Thank you,
right
Fred
now
Franklin, 5
for a
memberships.
drug test, you're gonna be negative.
Positive. No.
You're gonna be positive?
No, I'm saying correct.
Okay. And Ms. Owens, what was your punishment at home?
I got grounded and I got my phone took.
Taken, your phone was taken. That's what it should be, taken. All right, so how long was your phone taken, Ms. Owens?
For about a month.
What about you, Ms. Bogart?
For about like a week and a half.
And so, Ms. Bogart, how were your grades?
At the moment, I don't know because I just switched online, but when I was in school, I had about 2 pluses, a C minus, and a B plus.
And that tells me that you're not turning in your work. Oh, no, I know that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Because there's no way that you're going to be getting C's and D's unless you're not turning in your work. So why did you switch to online school?
I was getting like a whole bunch of drama in school.
I'm sorry, what?
I was in a whole bunch of drama in school. I wasn't really getting along with
Okay. I don't know what that is.
Matt Weaver, 5 memberships. Thank you.
You're getting in trouble at school with other kids?
Yes.
Okay. Well, part of growing up is learning how to problem solve and handle problems.
But it was so constant, like, so my auntie was outside of the school calling, so she was just.
Your aunt? Is that,
how we-
that's who you live with?
Mhm.
Is that
Mm.
yes?
Yes.
Okay, and so is that your sister?
Yes.
Okay. And so why does Akira or Akira? Akira, why does she not live with you?
We all live with each other.
It's just the same household. We
Oh.
live in the same household, yes.
So why is your sister making the decisions for her?
She called me and told me while I was at work, so I gave her like, okay, we can send her to online for the remainder of the school year, 2-3 years. 2-3 months. And then next year, we'll figure out a new school system or a different school, starting high school.
Okay. So is that, so were your issues at school or were they on social media?
Say it again?
Were the issues at school or were they on social media?
Both at school and on social media.
Right. So unless you were staying off social media,
They're coming.
So
then you wouldn't have had as many
they're
hours
coming.
in school.
Right.
Correct. So then why don't you stay off social media?
I did. Even after I was staying off social media, kids were still going down to the office saying that I was doing stuff that I wasn't doing. And that's what I made.
Okay, so Ms. Owen, how are your grades? Okay, so more details, please.
I have like 3 Ds and like C's.
3 Ds, 2 C's. She doing good in school.
She's got the Mikey grades.
Killing it.
Why are you not turning in your work?
Because I can't like really. I can't focus in class.
Why not?
Because all the students are usually like bad at reading or being too loud, and I just can't concentrate in class.
So what are you doing to address that?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, does it?
No, but when I go home, I do like my missing. I do a couple of my missing assignments, but then I tell the teacher that I did them and she won't grade them. So then that just keeps my grades down.
Well, hold on. So do you have class assignments that you should be doing?
Yes.
And so you're doing those at home instead of in class?
Yes.
Okay, and so have you had a conversation with your teacher to let your teacher know that you can't concentrate in class because there's too much noise?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and so what was the response from the teacher?
She said that I can just ask to sit in the hallway. That's what the hallway.
So do you do your work in the hallway or do you just go on your phone?
No, yes, I do my work.
Do you turn it in?
Yes, but I don't finish it all.
Well, then how can you turn it in if it's not completely finished?
When I finish, then I turn it in. But then most of my assignments I can't finish because they give us a big pack. They think we can finish it in 1 hour.
Okay, so have you had a meeting, Mom, with the teachers or
I
administration to, let me finish, please.
Oh, sorry.
To maybe try to get some accommodations so that Samaya can then do the work at home and turn it back in?
I have talked to teachers, yes, just recent, I
Cole,
have been
thank you.
reaching out to them and I don't get calls back. Usually the only time they call me is when she has a problem. Right now, I'm working a lot of hours, I'm by myself, I'm a single parent. So, there are things that I am lacking because it's only me. So, and my transportation, I go by public transportation.
Oh,
Which is
gosh.
the bus or bike or walk, and it's been cold, so I can't bike. But yeah, it's just me, and I try my hardest. I've even reached out to the school. There's been times where I even go to the school and I cry to them and tell them how I'm a single parent and I need this and that. Cause her attitude, there was one day where she didn't, like what she was wearing. And I still drove her to school. She was trying to tell me that she wasn't gonna go to school. And that's not gonna happen. So I drove her to school and I went into the school. And as I'm going in, she's even sitting there and I'm not going, you're not gonna make me. Well, I went in there and I got a couple of the staff members, and they came out. And then they even had the police officer come out, and she went to school that day. But yeah, she has been a little bit of a handful, and I try my best to deal with her as much as I can. I tell her to do her work, I tell her this and that, and I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do other than what I try to do, because I feel like I'll be over mean, you know.
Over mean?
Over mean, yeah, like, and then I feel
Over mean, Creed.
certain things, like if I nag her too much, I'm just gonna lose all her motivation, because she does lack focus. I think it's more of her just getting lazy or overwhelmed when she shouldn't. She should have more strength in herself and understand this is something she needs to do.
I'm pretty sure she could focus on 15 Snapchats coming through at one time.
Yeah. A lot of times
Oh,
I take
true,
her
too.
phone. I take her phone a lot. Like I said, I am a
Sure it
single
was.
mom, so there are times where she's at the house with her brother, and I like her having her phone. He lost his phone for a while, so even when I grounded her from hers, I gave it back because I have to have a phone with them. They have to have a phone while I'm not there. So that it makes it really hard on me, because I don't have another individual to be there for when I'm not. So, but I try my best, and I have reached out to the school. I don't know, I wish they would have reached back and we could have gotten,
Done.
like, and then the school does not offer any kind of transportation. And, when she first applied at this school, we were living in Wyandotte, now we're in Equals. And, it's hard, there's no bus that goes directly from our house to there, like, you have to walk 23 minutes still, and it's difficult.
Well, I think that there may be some type of assistance for transportation, so you should probably reach out to the
I know what medical,
to the
I'm
board
not
of
sure.
I'm sorry?
I know what medical, but I've never looked in for like getting her back into work to school, so I'll look into it.
You would need to contact the board of ed to find that out.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you been here before?
Yeah, a while ago. I don't think so.
No, I know.
I don't think so.
No, that's okay. I thought your voice sounded familiar.
Oh,
So, Ms. Owens,
Wonder what she was
why
there
do you think
for.
that you can tell your mom that you're not gonna go to school?
I was having a really bad morning that day, and I was.
she's present for court.
I just really wanted to stay home.
Okay. And listen, I get it. I get that you have a bad day. I get that it's frustrating, right? So we weren't, as parents, we weren't just plopped down here as adults with kids, right? We've all grown up with the same type of stuff. Different than what you're currently going through, but it was also different from what our parents went through. So that being said, when you're having a tough time, avoiding the issue is not productive. Working through it and processing it is what's going to help you succeed when you are an adult and you're working, because you're going to work with people you don't like. You're going to work with bosses you don't like. And you can't just tell them, I'm not coming to work today, and still think you're going to have a job. You can't say, I'm just going to work from home today. That's not how that works. It doesn't work like that at all. Do you think that your mom wants out? You think your mom doesn't have hard days doing things by herself and still has to get up and go to work and deal with you and your brother that clearly don't respect her and follow directions and rules in her own house? Do you think she wants to just sometimes just say, forget it, I'm done today and I'm just doing nothing? Don't you think she wants to do that sometimes? But she still gets up, goes to work, and does what she has to do to provide for you and your brother. And you're going to have a bad day and not want to go to school. Tell her she can't make you go to school. She absolutely can make you go to school. She can. Because if you don't go to school, then she's in trouble. And Ms. Bogart, I don't know what the issues are that you had at school or whatnot. Now, can people your age be mean? Absolutely. All of you can be mean. All of you. perhaps trying to sit down with whoever you're having issues with and administration would be a good idea.
I did try that. We tried calling her down to the office. She was like the police did.
Calling who?
The girl and I that I was having problems with at school. We tried calling her down to the office. She blew things deserved it and when I come here, they told her to go back to class. And then after that, nothing else was resolved. Nothing was talked about.
Okay, Dad, did you try talking to the parent of this other child?
Yeah, we talked to the parent.
Did you try all having to sit down with administration?
We all haven't sat down with the school administration, but we talked to each other, parent to parent.
Okay, so what started the issue you have with this other person? Was it a boy?
Yes, it was actually about a boy. It was
Uh-oh.
about a boy.
Yeah.
I went to the movies one weekend with somebody, she accused me of going to the movies for him. She accused me of talking to him, all types of stuff, and I tried to tell her, like, I'm your friend, I'm not about to talk to nobody that you used to talk to. So, after that, she started saying that I was a HOE, I was nasty, I was doing stuff that I wasn't supposed to be doing. Basically just like trying to make my name bad, and that's what really had got me, like, what I didn't do nothing to you, right? So that's what started.
So instead of continuing on and trying to work through that, you wanted to just stay home and do online school?
No, that has been going on for months. That's really why I went online, because it's been going on for so long. She hasn't stopped. And, none of the talking about people, nobody has been threats back and forth. Like being threats.
Is she still talking to this boy?
No, she has a whole other boyfriend.
So that's just, yeah. Okay.
It's always a boy somewhere in it.
Here's what I'm going to do for both of you. I'm going to set this matter for a sentencing date on another date, because I want to see the progress that the two of you have made with your grades. And I want to see the progress you've made with not using any substances, both of you. Okay? So I'm going to have you both come back on April 25th. It's a Tuesday, does that not?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, that's the days that we typically do
This
the
is like my only
Wednesdays. Okay. So April 25th. Well, hold on, you're on spring break next week, correct?
Yes.
Well, that's perfect, because then that gives you all sorts of time to catch up on all of your missing assignments.
No excuse.
Seriously.
I don't think they like that.
No, they don't like that at all.
All right, and we'll do 11:15 a.m. So
Ken, I'll
what
thank you for the
need to do is
two.
you need to email all of your teachers, find out all of your missing assignments, and get them all done. You have 10 days to do it, right? When's your last day of school? Wednesday or Thursday? Okay. You have 10 days. You have 10 days to get it all done.
All day, every day. You got 24 hours.
Who's handsome?
Yeah, so they need to all be done. So you need to
Checking the
bring a
PP.
printout of your grades with you, showing all the assignments that have been turned in. Okay, now. It may not be possible. Oh no, it would be possible by then. To have those assignments updated in the system. Okay. So we'll see you both back on April 25th at 11:15 a.m. Both testing negative and having your assignments all turned in and your grades improved.
25 bones in the PP.
And your behavior and attitude at home. Got it?
I get who's handsome.
Okay, all right. Have a good day. All right, good luck to you.
Well, all right. Oh, by the way, you got to put yourself into there. If you think about it, if a judge and my parents are just telling me that my spring break is ruined, I think I'd be pretty mad.
I mean, it's they're going to catch up on some schoolwork, Creed. That's the perfect time to do it because Lord knows I always enjoy catching up on schoolwork.
Thank you guys. Couple extra hallelujahs for what we missed. Want to kind of keep quiet, especially when it's very, very quiet. Mark, I wanted to address that. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, some of these parents that come through are very shitty. And so a little bit of extra help, whether it's on the taxpayer dime or not, I think is very, very important. I know there's a lot of people that had a lot to say about, first of all, that the weed's fine and all that with the kids. But man, I'm sorry. I think that I think that these kids need a little extra, being a little extra scared. I put myself in that situation back when I was younger at that age, going in a court setting to a judge and being talked to like that would certainly get into my head. But, you know, kids these days are much different. But listen, a lot of these parents, you see their excuses, their answers. You need stuff like that, I think. But to each his own. We all can have our own. We all can have our own opinion.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. We're switching gears over to this one, right?
Yeah, we're going to jump into this TPO in a second, Creed. They say love thy neighbor, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And when it doesn't, that's when these kinds of things happen, Creed. Unfortunately.
Oh, no. I will BRB.
Go ahead.
So, again, I've reviewed some pictures, some notes left on doors, or note left on a door, maybe might be more accurate.
Not doors.
Saw some pictures, garbage can, seagull. Before we get started, I do have a couple of questions. And the way these things go on the initial hearing, so I'm going to swear both parties or all witnesses. I see Miss Lindsay is here with who I assume is Mr. Lindsay, who's referenced in the report at some point, referenced in the declarations here at some point. And it looks like Mr. and Ms. Unrath are here. And so I'm going to swear both parties in. I'll hear from the petitioners. I'll hear from the respondent. Following that, I'll make a determination whether an order is appropriate. But before we start, I do have some questions, for the Unraths, and you folks can unmute here. And I guess, again, this is the only case that's actually going to go to hearing here this morning, other than that case we just had. So, you know, I normally lay out some ground rules, and the first one is don't interrupt the other party when one's speaking. I want all comments directed to me. You know, sometimes you're going to hear things you disagree with. You're going to hear things you don't like. But yeah, I'm going to just all comments directed to me and don't interrupt the other party. So who's going to speak for the Unraths first? I just have a question before we get started here.
So I will, Your Honor.
Can I raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm the information and testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
How long, you put your hand down. How long have you lived there?
We've lived here for about 18 months.
Okay. And then were the gardeners, or not the gardener, Lindsay's, I'm sorry. Ms. Lindsay's living there when you moved in?
We both moved in around the same time. The Lindsay's just a little while after us, I believe.
All right. So this garbage issue, has this been an ongoing thing, or is this like there was this one instance where the seagull got into it and that caused some problems? Did it all start then, or is this an ongoing thing?
It did. It all started then. This has not been an ongoing issue, and certainly not something the Lindsay's have made us aware of.
Okay, so you talk about wasting people's times. We're in court now because these people's garbage was all over the place because of seagulls attacking it. Around here, we have possums and raccoons that do that for us. But again, this is all over the trash. There's a poll. I'm putting a poll up in both chats on YouTube. Give us your opinion. Thanks.
How well have you gotten along with Ms. Lindsay, I guess in particular, but both Lindsays in general prior to this?
So this was our first instance in actually meeting Mrs. Lindsay. at the time of the first incident on January 30th. Mr. Lindsay, I had met briefly in passing around the time where we all moved in. He and I exchanged contact information around that time, just off the premise of being next door neighbors, that kind of thing. Other than that, we've had very minimal interaction with their family, at least not directly. Now, there have been a couple of instances that I did my best to highlight in the petitioning statement where we were made aware of their presence and behavior in our neighborhood. Most specifically with regard to their windows always being open, hearing a lot of curse words and profanity coming out of the house, trying to keep our children generally away from them. Mrs. Lindsay is something of a known commodity in our neighborhood, which I'll share with you.
Well, no, I'm just asking questions here. I'm gonna have some questions here before you don't need to share with that.
A known commodity.
No.
Aye.
And then I can't believe I'm asking this question, but I'll ask it anyway. What's the garbage can situation been since all this kind of came to a head, so to speak? Is this an ongoing issue? It's been resolved?
April.
No, there's no.
Go ahead.
There's no issue, Your Honor.
All right.
It was just those two incidents.
So, okay, I'm going to come back to you. I'm not, your testimony's not done. And so I just want to come to Ms. Lindsay there for a second there. Could you unmute yourself, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Could you raise your right hand? You swear and affirm the information and testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Can you put your hand down, please? So as I read this, again, I didn't know how long you folks have lived there. Any of you folks have lived there. But as I read kind of the situation and, kind of the old expression, kind of making a mountain out of a molehill comes to mind.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm kind of talking to you in the sense that, things happen sometimes when garbage cans let out to get picked up. Sometimes they get over full. They do. And sometimes it may be, I live in a neighborhood where sometimes coyotes are present. Sometimes a coyote might get into it and create a bit of a mess in the street. And then, it gets cleaned up. And then, generally people think, oh my gosh, yeah, that's one of those things. And there you go. But it kind of seems to me like you kind of took this to a level where it really didn't need to go. And so I guess I'll have you respond to that. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to swear in the unrest. I'm going to get all their testimony from them. Then I'll hear from you. And then I'll make a decision as to where to go from here. Keeping in mind, you guys all still need to live next to each other. When you get courts and court orders involved, it seems a bit of a, things just turn into a real mess in a hurry. And so I'll have you respond to my comment. Then I'm going to go back to Mr. Unrath, take his complete testimony. Then I'll hear from you and then Ms. Unrath too, if she wishes to testify. And then you, and then Mr. Lindsay also. But anyway, you have any comment to what I said about the mountain of the molehill there, ma'am?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I simply started out meeting the Unraths by being very pleasant to them and asking them if they knew about this issue that was going on. And the reason that I went over and asked them was because we had been dealing with garbage blowing into our yard on other occasions. And now, as you can see from photographs of the first time that I ever approached them, the can had been, I think that was the day that the seagulls had gotten into it and there were birds flying all around, and it wasn't going to get any better in the next several hours until the garbage people got there. And I did not feel it was my duty to go out and pick it up and smash the can lid down to keep it contained until then, but I really didn't want it being blown all about and picked all about the neighborhood. So I submitted the Ring video that Mr. Unrath had sent to my husband of my very first encounter with them. And I believe that I was very pleasant in asking if they would very, do something about it so that, I wrote the note 4 hours after that because it just got worse as the morning went on, as my pictures showed. And I was kind of peeved watching
What a terrible morning she
the
had.
garbage getting blown into my yard and down the street. And
Again, this is garbage blowing when she could have just been like, I mean, people, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, everybody lives in neighborhoods. The wind blows through there. People's trash cans get blown. I've had people's entire trash cans end up in my yard. The wind blows down the street.
Here's something for us here in the South is that we have to take our own garbage, which is fine. But in a state where they allow you to do that for free, keep in mind, the city of Rock Hill will pick up. I told you that one time that you can just call them and they'll come and get mattresses that you could do for one a day. You know what I mean? So there's no excuse for, I don't know if many of you notice this or how it is where you live. Where I grew up, it was nowhere near the amount of trash that there is in this state. Everywhere you look is just insane to me. But it's a thing. It happens. My God, the seagulls. This is, and again, I just want to reiterate, just to make sure, this instance only happened twice, correct?
Yes, 2
and we're here
times, Creed.
We're here with a protection order.
Yeah.
We want a protection order from your neighbor because this happened 2 times.
And by the way, Miss Lindsay does have a reputation in the neighborhood. I'd love to hear more about her reputation. I feel like
hope
it's
we do.
stellar. And are both of them grinding their teeth like the Lindsays? Like when they're not talking, it's like they're biting their tongues or grinding their teeth. It's very strange.
I hope we get to see
knowing that it could have been contained. That was all.
I
And
want to see that.
I never meant for this to get to this point ever, Your Honor. There's never been anything to indicate that this should go before a judge. Simply a neighbor asking another neighbor to contain their garbage, and in line with HOA, with good environmental practices, and with the ordinance of the city. That was all.
All right, Mr. Unrath, you're still under oath. I'll hear from you. What's your, tell me why it is you need an order against Ms. Lindsay.
Hello, Matt Cave.
Yes, Your Honor. So good morning. I do have a statement prepared. So if you'll just bear with me for a few minutes, I'll lay it out. I'll for you. So I'd like to open by stating that I initiated this petition under the advice and recommendation of both law enforcement and military legal counsel when presented with the circumstances that I'll now do my best to relate. So as my petition describes, on the 30th of January, which was trash pickup day at 9:03 a.m., Mrs. Lindsay approached our front door in an agitated state after several birds apparently tore into one of our trash bags, scattering a small amount of trash parcels near our curb. I'd refer you to Exhibit D, which is a photo of the trash can at 9:06 a.m. Not immediately receiving an answer on our Ring doorbell, Mrs. Lindsay became impatient and hammered directly on our front door, stating aloud that she hadn't even seen our children leave for school yet. When my wife, Heather, did respond over the doorbell cam a moment later, Mrs. Lindsay confronted her over her grievance as Heather prepared for work, stating that we needed to address her complaint. I refer you to Exhibit A, the doorbell cam photo and transcript of the confrontation. This, I would note, was the first personal interaction either Heather or I had had with Mrs. Lindsay in roughly 18 months of living next to her. In this encounter, Heather was kind, apologetic, and expressed every intention to address the issue after her work obligation. Unsatisfied, Mrs. Lindsay returned roughly 2 hours later at 11:12 a.m. with an outrageously hateful, accusatory, and insult-laced 2-page letter, which she angrily affixed to our door, muttering that there was no excuse for our perceived inaction despite us not being home. I'd refer you to Exhibit B, doorbell cam photo, and the transcript of the letter drop-off, as well as Exhibit C, the letter itself. The letter, which included profanity, also threatened to involve our HOA, which Mrs. Lindsay implied she would take pleasure in doing. My wife was completely shocked by this sudden and dramatic escalation upon reading the letter after returning home over lunch. Fearful of what Mrs. Lindsay might do next and concerned about a confrontation outside, Heather immediately called me at work. I acknowledge that in circumstances like this, often the best course of action is de-escalation between parties, which is exactly what I attempted once Heather informed me of Mrs. Lindsay's behavior. After overcoming my own surprise at her actions and returning home to pick up the debris left by the birds, I reached out to her husband, Kendall, and arranged for a phone call during lunch to cool temperatures. During that conversation, which I would describe
cool temperatures, Creed. Obviously, this man's a military man. He said he sought some, I don't know if he's still active duty or whatever. He's a military type dude. So, good for him. He's definitely got his ducks in a row.
Let me tell you this. I can't remember the last time I had a nice, cool lunch.
Got to cool it down.
described as very amicable. Mr. Lindsay acknowledged our concerns stated that he disagreed with his wife's methods and expressed regret that Heather, my wife, felt fearful of Mrs. Lindsay.
I 100% believe that. He said that.
Yeah.
He said my wife is a handful. I'm so sorry. She's crazy. He's
Totally.
like, don't bring that up here.
This
Don't
is
bring
great.
that up. Don't bring that up.
We came to the agreement that Mrs. Lindsay would no longer approach our home and attempt to contact us, and that he and I would broker any further issues between our families. Our family, however, was shaken and concerned by her overreaction in this instance. I had thought the issue resolved, but our arrangement hardly lasted 48 hours before Mrs. Lindsay attempted to call me directly at work on the 1st of February using a number I had never provided her. I did not answer that call. I'd refer you to Exhibit E, which is a phone log of my call with Mr. Lindsay and Mrs. Lindsay's attempted contact. The next series of incidences began on the 13th of February at 11:03 a.m., again on our trash pickup day. Once again, Mrs. Lindsay became irate and angered over our trash can, specifically that my family's trash can lid had been blown open by 13-mile-per-hour winds after we had all departed for work and school. Acting against our pre-existing arrangement for no contact, Mrs. Lindsay once more approached our front door and attempted to confront anyone available at our home regarding her grievance. When she did not receive an answer, she proceeded to gather pieces of trash blown in from the neighborhood park across the street and elsewhere and deposited them on our front lawn and porch. I'd refer you to Exhibit F, the doorbell cam photo, and the trash planting activities.
Man, he came prepared, didn't
She's
he?
shown here in clear view holding this lid.
Look, man, he just
is
laid
great.
on us 13-mile-per-hour winds. He knew how fast the wind was blowing on the day in question. This is how you prepare for court.
Right?
This is it
And
right
he's
here.
got exhibits. He's obviously got a bunch of pictures. He's got the timeline. Look at Jean's face right now.
She just thinks she is just these
Oh,
people.
man.
18 months with no problems. That's good.
Yeah.
But her calling his work when he's never provided her with a work phone,
Yeah,
and if he is military, that's a
bit nutty.
huge no-no.
A bit nutty.
Huge no-no.
Again, guys, 2 times this happened.
Count them, two.
I would also like to refer to the respondents, Exhibit I.
Hang on just a second,
Yep.
Mr. Unrath. Ms. Lindsay, you need to stop that. People can
Sorry, Your
testify all
Honor.
kinds of things. I'm watching what you're doing, and you're not helping yourself by doing that. So I'm going to give you a chance to speak when the time comes, but you just need to stop what you're doing. You understand?
That's code for Miss Lindsay. I hate you. Can you please stop with the head nodding and the
Oh, boy.
things and the faces? Thank you.
Apologize for the interruption, Mr. Unrath. You can continue.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'd also like to refer you to the respondents, Exhibit I, where Mrs. Lindsay admits to planting other litter, which includes imagery of the trash parcel she later weighed down with rocks on our lawn. The trash parcel and frame is Kirkland's brand, which is notable as our family does not have a Costco membership.
Oh, well, take that, Gene. Boom is right.
So she's taking. Hold on. This is just took a real
So
weird
he did
turn.
say they're planting garbage now.
They're
That's what he
planting
said.
garbage on his lawn now and weighing it down with rocks with brands they know they don't use because they don't have a Costco. Come on. Come on. Damn it, Gene.
Oh, man.
Damn it.
It was evident Mrs. Lindsay did not pause to consider any other possible source for these parcels before attributing them to us and planting them across our property. At 11:08 a.m. that morning, Mrs. Lindsay then began harassing me with text messages at work, demanding that I address her grievances with our trash can. I'd refer you to Exhibit G, Jean Lindsay text messages. Despite asking Mrs. Lindsay to stop contacting me, making it clear that we wanted no contact with her, and reiterating that she was frightening our family, she persisted until I was forced to block her messages. Her husband, Kendall Lindsay, also began texting me with complaints at the same time, further pulling me away from my duties at Joint Base Lewis McChord. I'd refer you to Exhibit H, Kendall Lindsay text messages. Ultimately, I was forced to block his messages as well, as he clearly had no intention of upholding our previous agreement regarding our safety concerns. During all of this digital harassment, Heather called me and let me know about Jean Lindsay approaching our door once again and her trash planting harassment. It became difficult for my wife and I to concentrate on our workplace obligations as we struggled to deal with the Lindsays for much of that afternoon, causing us significant emotional distress. This all culminated at 6:00 p.m. that night as I returned home from work, and what I now know was a deliberately planned and engineered confrontation in my driveway by Mr. and Mrs. Lindsay.
Uh-oh.
I would like to refer you to the respondent's Exhibit J, which is the video the Lindsays surreptitiously recorded of their attempt to goad me into some kind of reaction as I tried to unload my car and enter my home. In the video, it is evident the Lindsays had been watching our home, waiting for me to arrive, as Mrs. Lindsay can be heard saying, "He'll be gone, you're taking too long," as Mr. Lindsay inserts a recording device into his pocket. Once outside, you can see Mr. Lindsay cross our property line and hear him solicit me directly. When I noticed him, I stated plainly that there was nothing for us to talk about, thinking that he would leave me alone, and went about my business. When Mr. Lindsay persisted, I informed him that I was considering a restraining order after the events of the day and stated that he had failed to uphold his agreement to keep Mrs. Lindsay away from our home, as my wife had become very fearful of her. Mr. Lindsay then made further comments about our trash can and retreated back to his driveway. At that point, Mrs. Lindsay emerged from the doorway, obviously unsatisfied with the outcome, and they both began shouting and screaming at me from across the lawn about their trash grievances, bringing our other neighbors to their doors to investigate. Once their hostility became blatantly evident, I attempted to de-escalate and disengage, telling Mrs. Lindsay to please go back inside, that I had nothing more to say to either of them, and to have a nice night, all of which can be plainly heard in the footage. Mrs. Lindsay, however, predictably escalated by insulting me with profanity, threatening my employment and stating that she would involve my chain of command, and making bizarre counter-accusations of non-existent threats. Mr. Lindsay, in turn, began advancing towards me during this exchange, again crossing our property line. I can be heard telling him not to approach me. Fortunately, my wife Heather emerged after calling the police and began shouting at them to leave us alone, causing them to eventually depart after throwing more insults.
So now the police are involved. We've called the police. What do you think of this attack in the driveway? I mean, what were they trying to get him to say on recording and stuff? What do you think that was all about? Trying to get him like on charges or something?
I don't know. Obviously their minds work much differently than ours do. I can't imagine what you would think, like what you're going to catch him up on. What is he? Is he going to admit something?
Look at her face right there, man.
She's steaming. You could just, it's coming out of her ears. Just, yeah. And now she knows that she's completely on the judge's radar. So she can't even, she's doing just these slight, like,
she's going to have to win them over somehow, but this is an insane subject. I mean, these are neighbors.
And you guys are so right. You know, I don't think that he could speak for himself at all.
Oh God, no.
And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. I saw a couple of you said this in the chat, that was actually her using his phone texting.
Oh, absolutely.
I wouldn't.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I'm sure he is beyond embarrassed by this whole situation. But again, the two men are talking in this case. So yeah, they're taking care of it. Wow. Wow. Mr. Lindsay, come on, grow a pair.
The responding officer from Lacey PD arrived and spoke with my wife and I in our home. He reviewed the text messages, our description of past encounters with the Lindsays, and the events of the day. The officer recommended I file this petition for an anti-harassment order with the county as soon as possible. Your Honor, nothing about the respondent's grievances, which begin and end with the condition of our trash can, justifies the outrageously harassing behavior Mrs. Lindsay has subjected my family and I to in these instances. Her disproportionate concern and anger over an inconsequential matter that hardly affected her is not an excuse to text, call, leave angry notes, plant litter, confront us at home, hammer on our door, threaten my employment, or otherwise target us. In every instance I have covered this morning, we have been the solicited and targeted party. Never once did my wife or I initiate these encounters. Even now, my wife, children, and I all remain greatly concerned and in emotional distress over Mrs. Lindsay's erratic, aggressive, and unpredictable behavior, and believe our current living conditions to be hostile. My children, who are within earshot of Mrs. Lindsay as she insulted us during her confrontation, frequently worry about going outside and express fear at seeing the Lindsays in their driveway. My 8-year-old daughter has even asked me if we can move. We've had to purchase additional security cameras and equipment for our home to provide our family peace of mind. A day has not gone by that I don't get a rush of adrenaline when I get out of my car in the evenings and when my wife is frightened to go anywhere near a trash can out of worry that Mrs. Lindsay will once again reemerge. I would humbly request that you grant this petition so that our family can serve the remainder of our time at JBLM in peace before we PCS next summer. Thank you.
Ms. Unrath, do you wish to add any testimony? I could swear you in if I'll hear from you, or you can rely on what your husband just said. And again, if you answers yes, I'll swear you in. I'll hear from you.
Sure.
Raise your right hand, please.
She's definitely scared of her.
Affirm the information you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and
I'd
nothing
be
but the
scared
truth.
of her.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't doubt her staking out, waiting for me to bring that garbage out at any moment.
At any time, she could be laying in wait once again. I mean, they've only got to stay there till next summer and then they're moving again. But
I can't get here fast enough for them.
I am sure poor kids can't go outside and play. Got this damn crazy lady next door.
Hand down. And then go ahead, ma'am. Anything you wish to add at this time?
I mean, he did a pretty accurate job of explaining kind of the situation. And like I said, we've lived next to them for more than a year for sure. And it has been a constant. I'm hearing her screaming and cursing. The neighborhood kids, including our own, are all scared of her. It's a constant hearing her cursing that's so loud that we can hear it in our house. And it's over various things not having to do with us. And so we've kind of known to just kind of stay away. And then we've heard stuff that I don't want to say because it's not my own testimony.
And that's not really, the language people choose to use, that's not something really. The only thing I can do here, ma'am, is with regard to a no contact order, just enter an order that says, you're not to contact this person. I can't tell her to clean up her language. I can't tell her to don't speak as loudly as she does or anything like that. The only thing in front of me is no contact and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
so go
no,
ahead. I
absolutely.
apologize for interrupting. You can.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I mean, we just want to be left alone. We just want to live in peace and just. We do understand that we live next door. We're not asking for them to move or anything like that. We just want to be able to live peacefully next to each other without being bothered.
Anything further, ma'am?
No.
Okay. And so, Ms. Lindsay, I'm going to come to you. You can unmute yourself.
Here we go.
I can't remember if I'm going to have you, just as an abundance of caution, I'm going to swear you in again. Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm the information you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You can put your hand down and go ahead. I'll hear from you. And by the way, just there was reference to a video. I did review this file in before I got on the actually over the weekend, and for whatever reason I wasn't able to view the video. I saw something was in there, but I didn't actually see the video. And so we can talk about that in a minute. I'm going to hear. I just want to let everybody. I should have let you know that up front, but I'm going to hear from Ms. Lindsay and Mr. Lindsay if he chooses to testify or not, and Ms. Lindsay if she chooses to testify. She doesn't have to. She doesn't want to. And then we'll proceed from there. But I did see all the written exhibits. I saw the text, saw the note. There's a photograph and all that sort. But for whatever reason, the video didn't come through. And if you paid attention to earlier testimony, that happens sometimes. That's not unique to this case. But Ms. Lindsay, I'll hear from you. What's your position on their request?
I wish that you had been able to see both of those videos that we had submitted, because one was their ring video of me approaching their ring and my first and only interaction with Heather Unrath. And I wanted you to see there was no irateness at all to me, and how pleasant I was introducing myself and letting them know about what was going on.
Okay,
And
I'm
so
going to
that
stop
was
you there for a second, but I mean, I again didn't see the video. I have to say I did read the letter. It doesn't come across as a real pleasant letter. I just want to I'll be upfront with you on that. Go ahead, you can continue.
I know it does not, sir. And I wrote that approximately 4 hours after I had gone and talked to Heather about the garbage, and it had only gotten worse as 4 hours had passed. But does my note show irritation? Absolutely. Any threat to anyone's safety or welfare? Not at all. I didn't use profanity other than an acronym for a profanity, and it was not the nicest note, but I have my office in the front of the house, which overlooks the garbage can. So I was watching this progress as I'm working all morning, and I just got upset and wrote the note. Now, as to what I'd like to present is the truth of what happened is in my evidence, and I request for this to be dismissed on the basis of the fact that there's never been any threat or any confrontation with this family and me. Each time, which I think it totals 3 that I've ever approached their house in the 18 months that I have lived here. And it's all in the 2 weeks about their garbage. It was to talk to her through her ring, to go leave the note later that day, and then 2 weeks later to go and ring the doorbell again to see if anybody was home because the lid was open and stuff was blowing. I did have a cake liner. It looked like a piece of parchment paper from a birthday cake liner that was one of the things you see the picture of me holding that they insist wasn't theirs, but Mr. Unrath had just told my husband they had a birthday party there that weekend, and that's why there was a lot of garbage and tissue paper and stuff blowing around. But I didn't ever, I mean, the untruths and fabrications are very disturbing that Mr. Unrath is saying about me picking through other people's garbage. And he says something about I went to there's a little park across the street from both of our houses, and apparently there's a garbage can there. I've lived here 18 months. I've never stepped foot in that park. So he's perjuring himself with the lies about me. He's defaming me, saying I'm a commodity in the neighborhood, which he just said. I'm not even sure what that means, sir. But I've never posed any threat. I've minded my own business from these people the whole 18 months that I've lived here, and I did not like seeing their garbage strewn about. So I thought I tried to stop that from happening, and it's turned into this, unfortunately. In his testimony, and he seems to use very inflammatory language about me, saying I'm irate, aggressive, hateful, and confrontational. And irritated is what I was. Irritated is what I tried to get across, and you can see in my texts and in my note, I was irritated, but I was never hateful, aggressive, irate, or confrontational. So I want you to just consider that. The claims, you know, I'm not going to go through every little note that I've made here, but I just wanted to point out that I have felt intimidated and threatened by Mr. Unrath by ordering me. And I wish, once again, you had been able to listen to the audio, at least of the second incident that we had where my husband had gone outside. Under no circumstances did my husband know or lie in wait for Mr. Unrath to arrive home on the second time or the last time we've had any contact with them. I have an office, as I said, in the front of my house. Our house walls are rather thin, and I can see activity going on very easily next door to me and across the street. And I saw Mr. Unrath and said, go talk to him, hun, you know, see if you can straighten this out. And so that's when Kendall went out to speak to him that last time that we ever had any contact with them. And I did have a audio of that that Kendall had taken, and I wanted you to hear that also, but unfortunately you did not. But I felt threatened by him that day. I did step out of my house when I heard hollering going on, and my husband never stepped on their property line, sir. I never stepped off of my front step that day. And Mr. Unrath instantly ordered me, his words are, get back in your house. And I'm a 57-year-old woman, and I really don't need anyone telling me to get back in my house. I felt intimidated by that, and I have felt intimidated by the text he sent me, especially an overtone of one statement in particular that really made me it took me aback when he wrote to me, I'm serious, stay away from our home. And I'm like, that sounds very threatening. I mean, for a neighbor who have just gone over and said, you know, please, can you pick up your garbage?
Yeah, just like that, I'm sure, Gene.
I'm starting to feel threatened by the things that he was saying to me. And
okay, if we can all read body language, look at the judge right now.
Oh,
I mean, right now.
Yeah, he's just letting her have her moment.
He is just letting her go and go and go. 57, good for her. Looking, not a gray hair on her head.
Now, she, of course, said she never really confronted him. But when she did confront him, which she admitted to 3 times, I'm sure it was just like that. Just like that. God.
Yes. That's how I want all the chat to talk to each other, just like she did.
Oh, chat's still going about the first thing.
I know, you guys get it together over there.
You know,
I think my husband could even speak for how Mr. Unrath and he have had interactions that he kind of bullies my husband. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but I believe there was one conversation where Mr. Unrath told my husband that he was afraid to stand up to me. And I'm not sure why Mr. Unrath is taking this stance. And I would really like to just have nothing more to do with them.
We've been watching them for 20 minutes, and we all know that. We didn't have to live next to the guy to say that. 100% right. You're a big old bully.
Oh,
Allegedly.
We are moving out of our house by the end of June of this year and leaving this neighborhood. And I want nothing to do with them now or in the future. Perfectly happy with them staying away from us and us staying away from them. If their garbage goes on my lawn, I will pick it up and throw it in my can without another word.
yeah, like other
but-
normal
You should
people
have.
would.
Yeah, I do not need an order against me that is falsely accusing. And I feel that's what this is. It could hinder my ability in my job search right now. I'm a legal editor looking for employment right at the moment, and I don't need anything to hinder that search for me or my family's ability to find new housing in the next 3 months. So I requested this be dismissed, Your Honor.
There's an indication, I think I saw in there, and I could ask him to repeat it, that some, garbage was placed, and again, he referenced Kirkland and Costco. Garbage was placed on their property with a rock over it, probably to keep it from being blown away.
You can see in my photographs, there's some of my evidence. There's a picture
Did
of
that happen?
there. I did not plant anything. I looked out my window and saw a big paper towel container, like 6-pack roll of paper towels. And it was stuck in my front bush, and I went out and took a picture of it. And then I picked it up and I walked to my property line with the unrest and I set it down and put rocks from around an electrical box you can see in the photograph on top of it so it wouldn't blow away, because I got tired of picking up their garbage and putting it in my own can that day. And I never planted anything. I took one piece of garbage over to them that day and put it under their step. I held it up to the ring and said, I think, your garbage is blowing around and I'm going to leave it here. And then hours later, that paper towel thing had blown into my bushes. And I was like, I'm not picking up their garbage anymore. And maybe that wasn't the neighborly thing to do, but when it's happening, this is I think that was the second week, week that it happened. I just picked it up and I put some rocks from my yard on it. Never planted anything, never picked anything up out of anybody's can. Assumed it was there since theirs was the only can on the street with the lid blown open. And in one of my other photographs from hours before, I think you clearly can see that exact same paper towel wrapper or something, blue plastic sticking out of their can that looks like it. I don't shop at Kirkland or whatever the store is that sells that. I've never shopped there. That's not my product. And
I've never left my house. I didn't even know.
He's
there was
accusing me of picking through people's
park
garbage and
across the
putting it on
street.
his lawn. I don't need to do that at all. His garbage was blowing on my lawn.
Mr. Lindsay, anything you wish to say? I can swear you
Help.
in and hear from
Help.
you.
Help. That's what he wants to say. Help.
Yes, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand. You swear and affirm the information and testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
You can put your hand down. What do you have to add?
I hate this bitch, Your Honor.
Well, I feel that this is an egregious abuse of the legal system, that the unrest are, imposing false allegations on my wife and myself. And this is causing us a lot of emotional distress because it has some serious ramifications on employment and housing. Our intention is to be leaving this neighborhood, as Jeannie said, at the end of June, and we have no desire or cause or need to have any interaction with the unrats from this point going forward.
May I say something else? We never had
Hang
had
on,
it.
but he's not quite done yet.
Oh, okay.
He can-
Yes, and so
Look at her looking.
I think that this whole matter just needs to be dismissed, and I think it's an over exaggeration, overblown situation that the order needs to be dismissed, and we need to go on about our lives. We have no intention to have any interaction with the unrats.
So, did one of you call Mr. Unrath at work?
He and I exchanged cell numbers, and that was the only contact information that I had ever received from them. Back in probably October, November of 2021, when we first moved into them.
It's the 713 area code that we have, I
Ma'am,
believe. I
And
believe.
so, hang on just a sec.
Sure.
So is that a yes? You
No.
called him on when he was at work?
I texted him.
I thought I heard
Work
Mr. Unrath
hours.
said he was called at work. That's what I thought I heard. If I'm
It
mistaken.
was during,
On his cell phone. Explain what phone.
it was
Okay, so
during.
Ms.
Oh
Lindsay-
my-
Ms. Lindsay,
browbeating. Here's the browbeating, looking to her for answers. He doesn't
Right.
know what to say.
Yeah.
She's like, she's trying to tell him what to do and what to say, and the judge
So-
can see it. Judge is about to stop her from badgering her husband.
Yeah. So I mean, we saw this coming, right? Without seeing that, we all knew this is exactly how that was going to play out between her and him, as far as letting him talk. Yeah, she won't shut up. I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, I think even all of us in the chat could have agreed on that one. That was on its way. He ain't allowed to say a damn thing.
Oh, I could imagine when the cameras went off.
Oh,
poor guy.
he's fully qualified, I think, to speak for himself. So let's let him do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was during work hours, but it was on his mobile device, his mobile phone. I assumed his mobile phone. That was the number that he had provided me. That was the only phone number that I had ever had for him.
And then there's also some testimony there that he spoke to you about it and just said he wanted all sort of interaction to go through you, and then that didn't happen. Is that accurate or no?
No.
And ma'am, I'm
Yes,
asking him.
Yes, sir.
yes, and yes, we had discussed that all interaction would go between he and I. And apparently there was a mistiming or something of me relaying that information when Gene had contacted him. And so
So is what you're telling me then that you talked
What
with
was
Mr.
that?
and then you didn't, for whatever reason, relay that to Ms. Lindsay, and so she was unaware of the conversation that you and Mr. Unrath had?
that's correct.
All right.
I don't believe it. Look at her face.
Mr. Unrath, anything, or actually anything further from the Lindsays?
Yeah, I did want to say there was something very disturbing in the original papers that I had gotten, that Mr. Unrath, they're saying they feel threatened when I've never done or said anything to threaten them. And something that really stood out to me, that really bothered me, as he's in the service. I'm not involved in the military in any way, and I also do not possess or have any access to firearms, yet he made a statement in his testimony that I do, and that is incorrect.
I didn't hear
and
that.
very assumption, like I don't know where, this sort of stuff is like out and out lies like that to take place. I just don't understand. I have no firearms. I have no access to, never have I ever in my life. And yet that is what I'm reading in these orders and things like that. I mean, I don't know how to take that, Your Honor. A lot of what he's said is fabricated, and that's all I can tell you is the truth.
Mr. Unrath, I'll come back to you. I'll give you the final word, then I think I'm ready to rule.
Yes, Your Honor, I certainly appreciate it. So just in summary, all of the requests, all of the testimony, all of the petitioning that I've submitted, it's backed up by evidence by both mine and the respondents. And if you have not had an opportunity, and I certainly would encourage you to take a look at the video that the Lindsays have submitted, because I believe it's very in its entirety as to the folks that we're having to deal with. So that's all I really have to say in that regard, Your Honor. All we want to do is just be left alone and have some degree of peace of mind. And so that my children don't have to be fearful when they come home from school and cast furtive glances over into the Lindsay's driveway and ask me to move when I still have a year and some change left here at JBLM before we PCS. So that's all I would say, Your Honor. I certainly appreciate your time this morning.
How old are your kids?
12 and 8, Your Honor.
All right, so here's where I'm at. For better or for worse. I'm going to talk about the definition of harassment, which I haven't gotten yet. This is an anti-harassment petition. Unlawful harassment is a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that seriously alarms, annoys, harasses, or is detrimental to such person and serves no legitimate or lawful purpose. Course of conduct must be such as would cause a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress and must actually cause substantial emotional distress to the petitioner. Course of conduct is also filed. Is also defined, excuse me, but I need to find it here. Is a pattern of conduct composed of a series of acts over a period of time, however short, evidencing a continuity of purpose. Course of conduct concludes any form of communication, contact, or conduct, including the sending of electronic communication, but does not include constitutionally protected free speech. In the testimony, again, I want to make some comments. First of all, you know, with regard to the Lindsay's testimony, or some comments made by the Lindsays, where, you know, they term this as an overreaction on behalf of the UNRAS to come to court and ask for this order. You know, if there's any overreacting going on, in my view, it's what the Lindsays did in response to apparently an occasional or maybe even one-time event that happens probably in pretty much every neighborhood in the United States of America, where occasionally, sometimes garbage is going to spill over, whether a dog gets into it, which happens, whether a seagull gets into it, which apparently happens here, or like I said before, whether a coyote gets into garbage or other sorts of animal, or sometimes the wind just blows things. That happens. And and again, as I see it, based on the evidence that's been presented to me, the Lindsay's reaction to that is was a pretty big overreaction. Mr. Lindsay has indicated, well, he's not sure why the UNRAS are taking this stance. Well, I am. It's because they don't want to have to, when something like this happens, again, the reaction and the tenor and tone of the reaction from Ms. Lindsay is, again, as I said, over the top and an overreaction. And I don't find Ms. Lindsay's indicate, well, they're trying to bully me and things like that. And it did not appear to me that that was the case either. But the question really is, you know, whether or not an order should be entered here today or not. And, you know, harassment, the normal things is people just, not every sort of conflict rises to the level of harassment. You know, sometimes people have arguments or something that it might be ongoing, but it all relates back to a single issue. But harassment, in a typical or traditional, for lack of a better word, form of harassment, you know, two people in a relationship breaks up, one side can't handle it, and the other party won't leave the other person alone. Or like in the neighborhood context, you know, one neighbor is just constantly on the other neighbor for a variety of unrelated circumstances. And it looks to me like in this case, this evolves out of kind of a single instance about this garbage situation that suddenly and quickly got out of control. And so I don't find that the behavior of the Lindsays, however inappropriate, and clearly, ma'am, it was. There's no question about that. At this point, I don't find it rises to the level of harassment, so I'm not going to enter an order at this time, but I'll say this. Clearly, Mr. and Ms. Lindsley, and I'm talking to both of you, you know how the UNRAS feel at this point and what this happened. Like I say, if there's any overreacting going on, it's coming from you folks, not from them. And just that's it. And so if there's any, both of you said, you know what, you just want to be left alone by the other person. And so I will tell the UNRAS and I will tell you, if there is any sort of contact from them, and again, you perceive, oh, we were just trying to be nice, which is inconsistent with what I viewed in terms of the letter. Again, I admit I didn't see the video, but if there's any contact coming from the Lindsays to her UNRAS going forward, I would consider harassing. And if that happens, Mr. and Ms. UNRAS can refile, and then you'll get an order, and that hearing will be a heck of a lot shorter than this one. You understand where I'm coming from there, Mr. and Ms. Lindsay?
Do, Your Honor.
Okay, and that's what I'm going to do here for today. So I'm not going to enter an order, but again, I'll just let you folks know that if any sort of contact coming from the Lindsays to the UNRAS, I would consider harassing in the future, and you can refile, and we'll reconsider it at that time. And that'll conclude the hearing here for today.
Wow. That
Denied.
it may have been denied, but judge put it to him like, look, I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to give you enough rope here. But if you do
Yeah.
it again, I can promise you there'll be a world of hurt coming your way.
I can understand to a point when he read that out about the harassment part. It is, I mean, listen, she was doing, but to that point, so I get it. I like how he was very stern and very much telling her that, yeah, one more time. And it just, I like the part too where he says, and it'll be a short one too. Exactly.
I loved it. A great case. It was definitely something, ridiculous, but at the same time, it had a lot of moving parts, which was made it for a good time.
That's
Good
it.
time.
Court is
Oh boy.
adjourned. Steve,
Yeah.
where's Steve? 26 minutes early.
I know. Where's Steve when you need him? Guys, if you haven't done so already, please like our video. If you'd like to subscribe, we do court. But if you just want the court, we got a case as the channel for you. Otherwise, hang out here with Creedence and Bishop show, and we do court cases, car chases, you name it. We do a lot of stuff. So there's your
Today's
choices.
Nice Rug Express, Toy Mom, Gary, Chris, Fred Franklin, Matt, Dreamweaver, Cole, Kiernoth, and Who's Handsome. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. And lots of new members also, which I love. Appreciate
both chats went with one went with 85% for the unwraps, and the other one 90% for the unwraps. So overwhelmingly they won that one. So good for them.
Not bad.
All right, guys. We'll see you back here at 4:05. If you aren't busy, come on by. Please. We love you. I would never throw trash in your yard, Creed.